Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's the Black Monk Critic here. We are live. It's Ramblings 11. I'm going to get to Haikyu today. I will get to Haikyu today. So don't worry about that. If you are worried, I'm going to do that probably right after this stream. I don't know how long the stream is going to be. Usually these streams are like tend to be like an hour because I just have a lot to talk about, and then people come through in the chat, and I want to talk with them and hear their thoughts and everything like that. So today's rambling stream, I feel like I've talked about this before, but in like bits and sort of pieces and other streams. But I kind of want to focus on this one today because I think a lot of us who are into like video games at some level are somewhat aware of like those existing communities, right? Gaming communities are aware of like all this just the like avalanche of of survivors coming out, whether willingly or not, right? Like because right, we should know at least that there are always instances where information is put out there without the consent of the survivor or any of the parties that are involved, right? The harm doer, abuser, whomever, right? Mediators, whomever, right? And so I think like that this is something that we definitely have to talk about because I wanted to do a stream in the past with some folks, and I think I want to see if I can get that going really, really soon. I think I'm gonna really work as hard as I possibly can to do that now because and that's on me, like just not letting that stream come to fruition and like really getting that to happen. That's on me. Just like so it's like, oh, I'm busy, or I'm teaching, or I've got this stuff to do, like, so that's on me. And I'm gonna work really hard to make sure that stream happens much sooner rather than later. So maybe sometime next week. But I think we got to talk about it. We do, because I think one thing I've noticed, and I think more recently than anything, because I've had more time to just kind of really sit with things and really parse through things and to sort of understand what I'm seeing and what's happening and everything like that. And I think there are so many of us that don't really know much about how to move forward and engage with each other when the sort of, I don't want to call them moments because I don't want to diminish what's happening, but like, I'm trying to think of like a better word, but when I say like these sort of like social, honestly, I don't even want to call them movements because I don't know if like, do you know what I mean? Like, I think like when we have such like, right, there's like the number of survivors that come out, right? This is the sort of moment, right? So let me just say it like this. This is a moment in which survivors are coming out, again, whether they were sort of forced to by other individuals or parties or not. This is what's happening. And I think a lot of us don't know what to do in these spaces, within these moments, right? If we look, right, and I'm gonna speak to the Smash community because I know so many people who are either friends with people within those communities or know of the community and know of the and know of certain parties and certain people, right, within those communities, right? If you've grown up loving Super Smash Brothers, like you probably, like, and and were really in it, and maybe you competed at a tourney or something like that. You know what I mean? Um, then right? Then certain figures. You probably have an idea of who D1 is. You have an right? You know who right? Uh, I'm trying to name names that like have been like mentioned like recently, right? Like certain names. And if you've still been involved, then you'll know certain names, right? You'll know, right? Like you'll know names. Like you'll know who Nairo is. You'll know who you'll still know who D1 is. You'll still know who these figures are. So I think it's really incumbent upon individuals who are aware of this stuff, not even just aware of this stuff, but like are in these spaces, to like really be aware of and like take it upon themselves to not only educate themselves, but to be open to being to be educated. This is really, 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 really important. And I say that in that way because I think people really don't get the severity. People really don't get the severity of what's happening here. I think a lot of folks are really like they have a sort of social media kind of like mentality about it, and it sort of allows them to, there's like a distancing that happens. There's a disassociation, I think, that happens where people are just sort of like, I'm gonna tweet this thing and then that's it. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? And it bothers me. Like it's just like there's a certain way like that things are being discussed where it's like if you follow this particular individual and this individual found out about what's happening, there's a way in which like people are so sort of disconnected from like the severity of the harm that's been done, right, or abuse that's like that's like been committed, and they'll be like, oh, I'm worried about this individual here who was friends with the harm doer or abuser or rapist or whomever, right? And it's just like bizarre to me. Even that is like it's like, what are like, how, like, not even a question. Like I don't want to ask this question because I know the answer to it, right? Like the question I was gonna say was like, how is it that we've gotten to this place? I know how we got into this place, right? I think a lot of us know how we've gotten to this place, right? In a very sort of general sense, we can say patriarchy, capitalism, neoliberalism. There's so many different reasons for it, but I would put sort of patriarchy at like very much so at the root of it, right? And again, it's like, how have we gotten to, right? Like again, it's like, right, like we're in a space where so many of us are concerned about a Smash player who has heard about what's happened. You know what I mean? Like we're like, oh, poor Zero, poor this other person who is tangential to the individuals that are at that are at the center of what has of the harm that has been done, right? Why am I concerned at all about Zero? Why am I concerned about somebody's like I like, and I say that and that doesn't mean that, and when I say that I mean, I want to be more specific. What I mean is like, not so much why are we concerned, but like why is so much of the concern directed towards these individuals over here, right? Who were not particularly involved in that way, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, or right, and when I say not involved, I mean like at the sort of center of it, the individuals, the right, 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 survivors, harm doers, abusers, right, and right, because like it's such a bizarre occurrence. I think a lot of y'all know what I'm talking about, right? It's like if you go on like different places on social media, it's like you see this, like it's like, like why are y'all like, and we know why that happens, because again, a lot of us don't know what we're supposed to do. I say we because I think everyone is sort of included in this, in the sense that like no one is at this like pinnacle of, I know exactly what I'm supposed to do and exactly how it's supposed to be done, because this is very, like, all this stuff is very, it's intense and it's sensitive and it's nuanced in a way that is really in its sort of in a poignancy, in a there are parts of it that are very volatile, and I don't think anyone is like, I know exactly what to do, step 3.5 to 2, like that's not like, you know what I mean? But I think that at the very least there are actions, right, that we should be taking that we are not taking, that we have not been taking. And I think that's what bothers me. And there are so many sort of like levels to it. Do you know what I mean? Like there are so many levels to it. Like you can, like, right, like there are just like, right, there are individuals who are not open to having these types of discussions and are victim blaming and are harassing victims, and right, and they're just awful, and there's that, right? And then there are individuals who are who try to play this like weird libertarian objective devil's advocate sort of like figure, who is, there's always this weird kind of like, what's weird? It's like this, like they legit feel like they're like Metron from like the new god Metron from like the DC universe. You know what I mean? Like it's like they're just watching on a Mobius chair, like just chilling. And it's like those individuals, and I think those people trash too. Then there are, right, and then it's just like, and then it kind of keeps going, right? And then there are people who are open and are sort of willing to like learn and listen, and may not know much, but they know that there are things that they need to know. And so they have to kind of continue to learn. And then like there are individuals who are actively doing that work. And it just kind of keeps going sort of on and on and on. But I think the point is, for me, right, again, is that there is clearly not enough being done. There has not been enough being done. Because if there was, the way in which these, right, the way in which survivors are talked about, the way in which abusers are talked about, the way in which harm doers are talked about, it wouldn't, the social milieu of the Smash community would not look like this. If what we needed, right, within a community like this was there, it wouldn't, like, the discussion around this wouldn't look the way that it is. It would not. And at least for me, I think a few things that kind of, like, there are a few things I kind of want to talk about, but I think maybe just to kind of start off, like, right, I sort of posit the, like, I wanted to sort of title this as the title of the stream as a question, but I think I want to get to it because I just wanted to ask you during the stream, right? And it's like, what do you want your communities to look like? How do you want them to function? Right? And those sorts of questions lead to other questions. And you're trying to answer those questions, right? You're not just like asking questions to ask questions. You're asking questions, right? You're positing queries, right? You're sort of saying like, what do I think would work? What do I think would be useful? What actionable, like, right? Like, what actions would help? What actions would move us towards harm reduction, towards self-care, towards mutual aid, towards all of those different things that are essential in a harm reductive politic. So we have to talk about those things. And I think, again, like, these communities do not have those things. They don't. You know what I mean? At least, like, I don't think so. And I think we right, and obviously within our own communities, but I think especially, and I'm talking about especially like within gaming communities, because right, and like and that tournament sort of scene and all that sort of stuff. I'm talking about that because, right, that's what sort of like here. That's what I'm talking about. So that's what sort of the focus is. But I think a lot of this, is related to a whole bunch of things, right? It's related to just community and like community in general, our social environments, where like the space, the social spaces that we exist in, right? But like, I think like questions for me that immediately sort of pop up whenever I see the way that this discourse is sort of going is like, what is being done for the survivors? That's like right. And the reason why I ask that is like, or not even that, but like, is there work being done? Is there harm reductive work, right? Restorative justice work, transformative justice work, healing justice work that is being done as we speak for these survivors? Is that happening? I don't even need to know what exactly it is. That's right, because often we have instances where survivors are saying, "Hey, I would like this work to be private," right? And you respect that. Period. You just respect that. You don't go around and, well, just respect it. Right? And you don't breach that. Because a breach of that would not be harm reductive. That's harm. So we have to talk about those things, right? We got to talk about those things. That's my first thing. What is being done for the survivors? Is there something being done for the survivors? Again, I don't have to necessarily know, because right, if I'm not necessarily involved in it, if that's not something like right that the survivors want me to know, I don't have to know. That's a decision that they made. Okay. But that's never the first sort of question, right? It's never the sort of first place that we go to. And even for me, right, this is something that I've had to work on. That. Like, this is like a daily sort of thing. This is not me, right? BMC did not get here when they were 1 year old, right? When I was 1 year old. I didn't get here when I was 1 year old. That's not how that happened, right? It's work. It's effort. It's conversations. It's discourse. It's reading. It's research. It's all these different things. All those different things come together, right? But this is the first thing. To me, it's so essential. It's so essential. And constantly, we don't see that. We're seeing this in real time. Right? In this moment, right? But right in this moment, right? And I'm not going to talk about sort of like the specifics of things, because I have no idea what survivors wanted out there. I'm not talking about none of that. Right? But we got to talk about this in a sort of general sense. This is something that clearly needs to like sort of be discussed, and we need to figure out, right, what is it, what are actionable steps that we can take to make communities safer, to reduce harm. Communities where survivors feel like they have places to go or people to go to that will help them, that will support them in that restorative justice, healing justice, transformative justice work. In that harm reductive work. That support, that support is so vital. And there's one instance, right? Again, there are instances where, again, these people, right, survivors will there are reasons, right? There are always reasons for why survivors, for why a lot of us were just like, you know what? We're not gonna say nothing. Because the space, the social milieu of the world globally, this is a global thing, but within these communities is not set up in such a way, right? It doesn't exist as in a supportive sense. It doesn't exist as something that is supportive, right? These communities they're not supportive in the ways that they have to be. Again, I'm not mentioning specifics. Y'all can look that up yourselves. Because again, I don't know what's supposed to be out there. I'm not sharing nothing. I'm not retweeting nothing. I'm not doing nothing. I'm just going to make my comment, right, on Twitter about this, that, and the third, about about my feelings generally, about what is an issue and what needs to be addressed in a general sense. But it's like, yo, and we know this. I know this. Again, I've said this like a bunch of times. I had a conversation with one of my YouTuber friends, with the guy I know on here, right? And it was just like, yo, like I told him, I was like, look, there are times where I will go to a certain channel, and if I know that channel is associated with certain people, I have to look through the chat and be like, who's here? I gotta be careful. You know what I mean? That's how I feel. You know, and that's like an online streaming sort of like community in that sense, right? And that's stuff that I deal with all the time. Not so much, not nearly as much now, but in the recent past, like that's stuff that I've dealt with, and I still deal with it to a degree. But again, it's like, I know there are spaces where I wouldn't feel safe. I know there were spaces where those survivors definitely did not feel safe. Definitely did not feel safe. Did not feel like they could talk with individuals. Did not feel like they would be supported. Right? It's clear. It's clear as day. And that's a big and that's like a big part of it, right? And this is like after the harm has been done. Right? And of course, the work that we're trying to do is to make sure that, again, harm reduction is about reducing harm, reducing these, reducing abuse, making sure this stuff doesn't happen to the best of our abilities. You know what I mean? It's like, and I think, again, a way to think about this is, for some of y'all who might have a hard time sort of like envisioning what can be done or what are actionable steps. It's like, again, the question is like, where do survivors go in these communities? Not where they go, but where can they go? What sort of like institutions or right are sort of set up in these spaces to where folks feel like if they've been harmed, if they are still being harmed, if they are being abused, right? If they have been sexually assaulted, right, harassed, where can they go? Where can they go? That's like an immediate question for me. Where are they at? Where are these spaces in the Smash community? Where are these spaces in different gaming communities? Where can they go? Where can they go? And that's a question for it. And that's a lot of you were like, I don't know. A lot of you are like, I don't know. One, because within those spaces, that stuff is not set up, right? Those support channels, those individuals are not there. Not really. Right? Not really. And I say that because right, you'll hear a story about like, oh, you know, you talked to me about this thing and da da da. And it's like, it shouldn't be the case that a person feels like they can only talk to this one individual, and then that right, they have someone that they can confide in, and then that one person just holds on to that and can't talk to anybody about that, right? Outside of if it's like, yo, like if they say, hey, don't say anything about that, then you understand, right? But it's like, again, why are these spaces set up in such a way that these people, right, outside of like survivors, right, where people feel like, oh man, we're just gonna have to walk around with that maybe for the rest of our lives. And you have to ask yourselves those questions. You have to ask yourself those questions. A lot of people do not want to ask themselves those questions. They just want to be like, oh well, where's the proof? They immediately go to the like, and I'm gonna talk about that. I'm gonna talk about that in a bit. But again, why are the spaces not set up that way? And if they aren't, right, and because they aren't, right, it's like, because they aren't, what are actionable steps that we can take to make sure that people, when they come to these tournaments, when they come to these spaces, when they go to these parties, go to wherever, they feel like they will be safe? That everyone in that space is committed to a harm reductive politic. These are the things we got to talk about. It's like, how do you do that, right? If somebody comes over to my place, right, to my fiance's place, right, a bunch of people to hang out and chill and whatever, it's like, that is on not only us, right, not only me and my fiance, to make sure that the space is safe and that people feel heard and that they can come to us about whatever concerns they have, right? But that everyone else that's also entering that space feels like that's something that they right, but that everybody that also comes into that space is also committed to that. This is why whenever you hear people be like, oh, I was over here when something happened, it's like, everybody's gonna be on the same page. Right? Especially if you're like a host or you're curating the space or whatever. It's like, especially you. Everybody's got to be on that. So this is, see, right, again, this is the thing for me. I think a lot of people don't want to do that. They don't want to be accountable to anyone but themselves and people within their, and with that they are like super close in proximity to. That's how that is. And it's like, we have to work against that. Right? It's a very like socially kind of neoliberal sort of like ideal to be like, I'm worried about me. And if I worry about me and I worry about me, like, everybody else will be all right. Somehow. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, we gotta, and that's the thing for me. It's right. It's why it's like, for me, it's like, people have to feel like they can come to me about things, and they have to feel like I'm going to support them, right? In these instances, when these harms are like after the fact, beforehand, whatever, right? And what's up, Alga Rocks? What's up, Morning Haze? And I think, like, again, it's really important to me. It's really important to me that happens. Right? So for me, it's like, what are steps that these spaces can take? For one, if you're hosting a tournament, right? You have a space. It's like an actual physical space where everyone is going to congregate, right? To do particular things. Then again, right? And we talk about this with cons. These are discussions that we've been having with cons, right? Gaming tournaments are not excluded, right? In the same way that Comic-Con has to be a place where people feel like they're going to be heard, right, and supported, right? Right, where cosplayers should feel like, right, and I mean not just cosplayers, but I say cosplayers because a lot of conversations around sexual harassment and assault definitely gravitate right around right orbit cosplayers, right? We know that, but like in the same way that we're kind of like we've been having those conversations. And that we continue to work to making sure that those spaces, those conventions, those cons are spaces committed to a harm reductive politic, to support, right, to being heard, for things to be dealt with in ways that are substantial, in ways that center survivors, right? I mean, that doesn't mean that we just don't worry about like the abusers or the harm doers or anything like that, but it's like survivors need to be centered in a certain way. The same thing for gaming tournaments. Same thing for gaming tournaments. That's what we got to see. And I think, a lot of it starts with, it's like everybody, right? It's like what you said, Morning Haze, right? It's everybody. It's like everybody has to be committed to that, because it can't just be, right? Because like you can't just be like, all right, here are these rules. Here are these rules that we've set up. And just like hope that people do this thing or follow these things or whatever, these rules or whatever. It's not like we've seen that that's not enough, right? Laws like are not enough. So we have to make sure that everybody is committed to that. Everybody sees that. Everybody's like, yo, what's up? You good? And that everybody feels like they can come to everybody else about harm that has been done, about abuse, about sexual harassment, about sexual assault. We gotta work on that constantly, daily. And what you're gonna see is some very unfortunately, right? Because this is how this has gone. This is how this has gone with conventions, right? And we've had these conversations constantly with conventions, and we still have so many issues. But it doesn't mean that we don't have those conversations, that we don't continue to do that work. But these spaces have to have those conversations. They got to be like, yo, what's going on? How do we make things better? Who do we talk to? One, we talk to each other, and we make sure that those conversations are center survivors, and that they are and that those conversations are concerned with harm reductive politic, like with the harm reductive politic. Like it's really, really key. And again, it's not just the people who run those sites. Right? It's not the people who run those spaces, right? Who organize those spaces, who put them together, who make sure things run in a certain way. It's on everybody. It's got to be on everybody, because if it's not on everybody, that's when right? When it's not on everybody, that's when the harm is much more likely to happen, to be overlooked, to be brushed off, right? And that's when places are unsafe. I guarantee you, if you just talk to somebody you knew, who went to like one of these tournaments or anything like that, you would know, you know, and they felt like they could talk to you about that. They felt like they could open up. Again, this is the thing. It's like my friends know they can talk to me about this stuff, and that I will support them in the ways that they need me to support them. Right? In the ways that they need me to support them. That's what that's about. It's not about me, being like, yeah, I'm a tough guy, I'm gonna knock somebody out or something. Like, who's that helping? That's not harm reduction in the least. You're just saying, oh, I'm just gonna punch somebody now because harm has been done. That's not harm reduction, y'all. Not really, not in the way that we sort of think about it. If you like, it's like there are ways to do these things, right? I saw a tweet, or someone was talking about it on in a video. I think it was a tweet, and someone was like, people, and it's largely men. This is true. Like, men like have this like fantasy, right? We have this fantasy in our heads of like when these moments happen, how they'll play out, and a lot of these fantasies involve us punching some dude, right? And that's it. And then a cishet woman being like, oh, thank you, cishet man. How could I ever repay you? It's just like this super heteronormative, patriarchal like fantasy, that's not helpful to anybody but the cishet dude who is benefiting from heteronormative, right, like patriarchal heteronormative ideas. So that's stuff that we're like, again, that's the stuff, right? It's like you gotta reevaluate everything, right? That fantasy always ends in violence, and then it stays there, and it stays there. It doesn't go anywhere else. It's not concerned, right? It's not concerned about that reality, right? It's not concerned about the pain. It's not concerned about it's not concerned about harm reduction at its core, right? Start, middle, end, violence, right? Morning Hay is like start, middle, end, violence, and it's like, yo. And this is why also you see individuals on the TL, on Instagram, on these different places talking about that person needs to go to jail. Lock him up. Like, this is very much so stuff that is rooted in, right, in a politic that is driven, empowered by violence. You know what I mean? So this is stuff that we got to talk about. We got to talk about that. Because y'all know how I feel. Y'all know how I feel about saying, oh, let's just throw folks in prison. Right? At this place, at like where I'm at now. Right? That's not to say that I always felt this way. I didn't always feel like, you know what I mean? I didn't always feel like prison, throwing folks in prison wasn't the answer for everyone. But that's what growth is about, right? Growth is about realizing those things, thinking through your belief systems and ideals and re-examining them, right? And saying, is this actually useful in the ways that I need them, in the ways that I need it to be? Is it? Right? And again, that's why so many people, folks are just like, lock them up. And then what? And then what? And then what? And then what? Right? So I see so many people on the TL just be like, all right, throw them in jail. And then what? What do we do? That doesn't even center the survivor. It doesn't. Unless the survivor is like, yo, I need this person in prison. And even then, there's like, right? I'm not gonna get into that because like that is much more nuanced than I think. It's a much more nuanced conversation that I think than I think I can have on this video, right? And it would sort of require me to sort of like have a conversation with others and to sort of work through that. But again, it's like, and then what? It doesn't center the survivor. It doesn't center in terms of like what the survivor needs, right, for their healing justice, for their restorative justice, for their transformative justice. Like, and this is why I talk about more recently, right? This is why I talk about a sort of carceral, right, idea of justice, right? And it doesn't work. It doesn't work, right? Because we're thinking about prison abolition, we're thinking about a PIC abolitionist politic. It doesn't work to be like, all right, throw that dude in, throw that dude in jail. You know? I know it doesn't work because in a very basic sense, because it upholds this idea that the prison industrial complex is useful, is transformative, is restorative, is healing, and we know that's not true. We know that's not true because we have so many individuals talking about prison reform. We know it. We know whatever it is that's going on right now and has gone on throughout the annals of history, right? Into this historical moment that we're in. We know it doesn't work. Because we know that because we know that prisons are spaces in which harm is not reduced. We know that often those harms are perpetrated within those prisons. Right? We know that. Look at all the prison films. The prison films would be like, yo, this place is trash. But in some ways it'd be like, oh, but prison is actually restorative. And it's like, wait. It's just like, prison films are a mess. All right, for the most part. But in some instances, we know, right? We know that like, look at all the horrible things that occur within prisons, jails. All right, so again, when we're talking about lock them up, right? Lock up that Smash player, lock up that dude. It's like, re-examine why your impulse is to say that and then not to do anything after that. Right? Re-examine your impulse. That's what I had to do. And I'm still doing. I do this every day. Because again, what we know is that this is stuff that's ingrained into us. It's ingrained from an early age, like, yo, right? Especially if you're someone like me who was born and raised in a black, right, urban community, right? You'd be like, better respect those security guards, better respect those cops, better not go to jail. Don't go to jail like your friend over there. Don't end up dead like your friend over there. Maybe you should become a cop. You could do a lot of good for this community. It's like, it's ingrained. It's ingrained for you from a very early age. So already you gotta be like, you gotta re-examine that stuff. Because if you don't, it's very easy to be like, all right, throw that person in jail. and think about it in that case, in that like one particular case, right? Again, we know jail, prisons, those, right? Psych wards, like mental health institutions, all of those things are deeply problematic and harmful and not harm reductive and not healing. And we have to really work on that. We got to figure out, right? And this is why, again, it's like, it's not just about sort of saying like, hey, let's get these things out of here. But it's like, what, like, how do we make sure that communities are spaces in which those things are absolutely unnecessary in every single way possible, or aren't deemed to be necessary, right? Because we know those things aren't necessary. We know, right? We know, like, no. But how do we sort of make sure, how do we like structure a community? How do we structure spaces in which it's very clear, right, to every single person that, oh, we don't need the police. We don't need social workers in this particular way. Right? Like, how do we do that? How do we do that? And this is stuff that we're talking about all the time. So many resources on it. I can't even. You know, there are a lot of places that you can look at. There are a lot of books that you can read. You know? So, you know, videos that you could check out, audio files that you can listen to. But again, it's like, those are things that I think about. It's like, how do we do that? How do we do that? But I know that the communities that we're seeing, like, they don't have those things in place. You know what I mean? They definitely don't. They don't. Right? Because it wouldn't have taken 2 years, 3 years, right, for people to feel like they could speak out about these things. When people don't feel like they can speak out about these things, it's because the community has constructed a space to where that is not possible. Again, I'm going to say that again. When individuals, right, when survivors feel like they cannot speak out about things, it is because, usually, right, and like there are other reasons for that too, right, but one of the biggest reasons is because the spaces are not constructed, are not amenable in any real way, in the important ways, to survivors. They are not, right? Because if you're on Twitter, you see it all the time. You see them tweets. Somebody comes out, oh, what are you talking about? Like, all the comment after comment after comment after comment after comment. Right? Survivors have said this for the longest time, like historically, consistently, have noted this point. And then you still have people who are like, I'm gonna need proof. What proof? Like, I need proof. I need, without a shadow of a doubt, I need proof. I need everything. I need all the things that laid on the table. It's like, without even thinking about what that proof would entail, about the near impossibility of getting that proof, of the immediate centering of the abuser, the harm doer, as opposed to the survivor. It's just so much. It's like, damn, yo, y'all are trash. Like, we yo, for real, we're terrible. We're terrible. I say we because it's like, this is like a community. This is like a communal sort of thing that we have to work on. It's not just like, oh, those people over there, or those people over there. It's like all of us have to, you know what I mean? Right? We kind of have to move away from a sort of like disposability politic, which is lock them up, throw them in prisons. You know what I mean? Yeah, just disgusting. You know, and you saw so much of that. There was one person who was who was basically like, I mean, I know this thing happened at my place, but I don't, when I heard about something, and I heard of something, I mean, someone said something, I knew something happened, but I don't really know, like, and it's like already there's just like this immediate need to distance ourselves from sites of harm. Like that immediate need to do that, like you gotta like, right? We gotta examine. That's like, why? Why are we doing that instead of working to make sure that these spaces are right? That we as us as people are working together to make sure that we're not causing harm, right? In certain ways, by disassociating, by distancing, by diverging, right? Like that's stuff that I see all the time. Like, and it's like, you gotta sit in that. You gotta make sure that you're there to do the work that is necessary for survivors. Ain't no yeah, I know I heard something, man. I know something happened. I knew the people that were involved, but I don't really know. And a couple of years later, right, like 2 years later, yeah, I mean, I'm not really involved. Like, nope. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I see that all the time. Sorry, I didn't cough into my sorry. I'm gonna wash my hands after that. But I see stuff like that all the time, and like people they work so hard to distance themselves, to not make their community spaces in which survivors feel like they are heard, listened to, supported, like really supported, in the ways that they need to be. And it's hard. And I'll say this, like, again, like for me, like, when I was talking about it sort of closer to the beginning, it's very difficult. And I know that for me, like, I've lost friends, I've lost people, like in that. I lost two of my, and I know, like two of my best friends, I like lost them because I know I was moving into a place where they were not comfortable, they were not comfortable with. I know it. And people within this community, like, we're not friends anymore because, like, I've gone to certain places, and it happens. But I think for me, and I think for a lot of us, what's really important is, like, we need to feel and know that the spaces that we're in, that the people that we surround us, that we are around, that we confide in, are there for us in the ways that we need them to be there for us, and like for me, it's like, I know now, right? Like, I know at some point today I'm gonna react to Haikyu. I know that, but I also want to talk to some folks. I want to see how they are. I want to know what's going on with them. I want to be there for them in that way, and I can always be better in that way, always, and I know that, But that's sort of the work, right? The work is like, it's not gonna be like the smooth, seamless sort of like thing, but you do the work. But again, I think these communities are not set up for that. They're set up in very capitalist sort of ways, right? They're set up in like this very sort of like very sort of like capitalist and even neoliberal sort of ways, right? In a way that like, you know, when you go to a tournament, like it's like, yeah, there are certain rules, but outside of those rules, people just kind of do whatever it is that they're doing, you know. And there are certain like and there are like certain like right like sort of like social kind of like social sort of like unspoken social contracts, right, that we sort of like are supposed to follow, but even those aren't really followed, right? And that's clear. That's clear from what we've seen. You know, so these tourneys, right? These gaming tournaments, these gaming spaces, like a lot has to be done, right? Folks should feel like they can like be like, hey, I'm uncomfortable. I'm gonna talk to folks about how I'm uncomfortable in this moment and why I'm uncomfortable, and let's work through this and let's work through that. You know, and let's deal with it in the ways that we need to deal with it. You know, it's just like constant, like, oh, you know, yeah, you told me about this thing, but you know, and you know, you didn't want me to say anything because X, Y, Z. It's sad. It's really sad. And that's why for me, like, I think another thing, and this is the last thing I'm gonna talk about, but what really bugs me, and bugs I think a lot of people is like, you know, again, it's like I talked about this earlier, right? It's like people that sort of like, you know, for me, it's like I talk about this stuff because I need I want people to know, right, that this is how I feel about like what should be done, how things should be done, and it's not about me feeling sad or feeling hurt, or it's about what do we do for survivors? How do we curate our spaces so that people who could be right, so that everybody is safe, everybody is heard in those ways, in important ways, in crucial ways. That's why it bothers me when people are just like, yo man, this dude was my friend and oh, this just hurts me so much. It's like that's harm, right? And that's like a sort of residual sort of harm, right, that occurs in that. But it's also like, why are you centering yourself in that way? Right? It's like your friend was a harm doer, was an abuser, right? Is an abuser, right? Is a harm doer. It's like, take that energy, right? And like direct it towards ways in which you can be useful, especially like if you have that platform, if you're a player and you work for like you're sponsored by this particular group or whatever. It's like, use that energy, make sure that you're working on things that are helpful to changing the spaces that you're in. Do that. You know? Do that. Yeah. You know, so if you're like, right, so if you're you know, Armada or Mango or Zero, or you know, folks that are like really at the top or whomever, right? And you want and you're just like, "Oh, my friend, like if your friend is a harm doer, an abuser, like you got to redirect your energies. You got to redirect that energy." Yeah, I hope they come out and support, and I hope they come out and support in certain ways, right? Because after a certain point, it doesn't become, oh, that person sucks. We're throwing them to the wolves. It's like there's a certain type of work that has to be done in these spaces, and it's consistently not done. And what I would hope is that they find that it's incumbent upon themselves, because a lot of these like corporations, right? A lot of these places that are, right, these orgs that will sponsor them, they won't be concerned about that in the ways that they need to, right? They should, and you should hold those, and right, and not even hold them accountable, because you can't really hold anybody accountable. What you can do is be like, yo, like, you know, you can sort of be like, hey, right, you can have those conversations and you can do certain things. But what I really want is like, I want these people to be like, how do we have these conversations? How do we set up these discussions? How do we have, you know, streams where, right? How do we have like streams where we have those discussions, and we work with people who are well informed who have done this work, and are continuing to do this work. How do we do that? That's something that I think I want to do like in the future. I really want to have some people on where we just kind of like have those conversations and figure out and work through those things. Right? How do we do that within these communities? Because we haven't really been doing that, right? That to me is what I kind of like just a part of what I envision. You know? That's just a part of what I envision. Doesn't even necessarily have to be streams, but it's like, right? But it's like, are you doing that publicly and privately? Are you doing that on your platforms and in your communities, in your spaces, in your immediate spaces? This is really important. You know, for me, it's like that's work that I have to do. You know what I mean? It's like, how do we have these big gamers have those streams where it's not just about them expressing their emotions about their friends who are abusers and harm doers, as opposed to how do we set up these spaces where these big names, right? The Mangos, the Armadas, the Hungry Boxes, right? And I'm talking about Smash, right? How do we do that where they start to do that kind of work? You know what I mean? Because they have these platforms. So many of these people are like, I looked up to this person. I looked up to that person. And this is what I'm talking about, right? It's like, it's got to be incumbent upon you, because people are out here looking up to abusers, looking up to harm doers. Right? You can't just be like, oh, it's just me. I can't control what people like. Nah. No. Don't do that. Don't do that. You know, you gotta like, what are we doing? And that's the thing for me. Like, and I'm not saying, oh, this person is trash because they're not doing, like, it's like, outside of that, right? Rather than that, like, and that's something that I'm trying to shift from. It's like, what are you doing? And I think we have to work on that. We really got to work on it. We really have to push. And that's something that I think I'm going to start doing. I'm going to start doing that like this week. I'm going to be like, yo, what are plans that you have? I might just like tweet it. I might just like tweet with Zero. I'm like, what are plans that you have? You know, if the DMs are open, right? Like, I'm just be like, yo, so all these things, what are plans that you have? Like, who are people that you're reaching out to? Right? You don't have to do it on your own. You shouldn't do it on your own. Right? You should reach out to people. You should, you know, come to realizations of like, oh, there are things that I really don't know, and I need to look into this thing, you know, I need to look into this text or this video or this site or this, or, you know, seek out these individuals, these organizations, these coalitions, like these grassroots organizations. What are they doing? How can I learn? How can I, you know, like that's the kind of stuff that I really hope that we get that's what I hope we get to. I hope we get to that kind of stuff. Like I really, really, really would like to see that, and I just don't see it enough. Like I just see people, I just see like people just being like, well, that person, like it's like you know what I mean. Like I saw like someone was like, someone was like, oh, this person was my friend. I would hope that no, like when it comes to like abusers, harm doers, like right when people who like right, but especially abusers, right? It's like they're not gonna come to you just because you're their best friend. It's like abusers know that a lot of like oftentimes abusers know that what they're doing is garbage, hot, like just trash, awful, just disgusting. They know this. They're not gonna just go out and be like, "Hey, I'm doing this thing. I'm committing. I'm like consistently doing harm to this person or these people," and then it's like shout it from the rooftops. They're not gonna tell nobody. So you have to really be like, so you have to be like, really be like, oh, I heard something. You gotta, you have to, like, confrontation is really important. You know, and when I say confrontation, I don't mean I want maybe not that word, but like maybe not confrontation, but like dealing with that situation. Right? Coming to that individual and being like, yo, what's going on? You know? So that you can be, so that they can be, so that every party involved can begin to work towards that restorative justice, transformative justice, healing justice work, harm reductive work. Like we really, really, really gotta push out towards that. And I think the reason why I'm saying this is because like I want it so bad, y'all. Like, yo. Yo. I wish. Like I want that so badly. Like I want so badly for us to move towards that, like in really actionable ways in all of these different spaces. Like y'all don't understand. You know, not just for the people in my immediate proximity, not just for me, but like everybody, everybody, everybody. Like that would be so incredible. It'd be so incredible, y'all. Like, yo. And I think there are really basic starting points that everyone can start at, you know? And if you have if you have a certain platform and if you have a certain, cachet, I guess, then you should be able to be like, yo, I need to speak to these people and these people and be like, how do we set up these spaces at these tournaments? How do we set up spaces at tournaments, right? Where people, where people are like, where people feel like they can go to individuals, and it doesn't, right? And it's like, everybody's not going to change in the same way overnight, but you have to, right? But oftentimes, right, we have space, right? You have to create spaces. You have to like create spaces where that work is being done. And ultimately, like what occurs is, right, more and more people see that those spaces exist, right? Because they do. And they're like, oh, that like seems so amazing. I want to be a part of that space. Right? And it starts to just spread in a certain way. And people start, right? And you start to talk with people and you start to like, and people start to understand like, yo, like, this is actually really amazing. And I really want to be a part of that. And I really want to like be a part of growing that space and growing those spaces. Like, I think that's really, really important to me. It's really important to me, y'all. Like y'all don't even know, and that's why it makes me so upset to see like when spaces like don't work towards that, and it's like the complete opposite, and we don't have that kind of like those sorts of spaces, and it makes me really sometimes mad, frustrated, sad, but I don't know. Like, that's how I feel about it. You know, I just think there are things that can be done right now. There are things that can be done right now. You know, like when you set up a tournament, it's like, who's going to be there? Where are spaces where people feel like they can go to talk about this, that, and the third? Like, people shouldn't feel like they have to be like, wow, this awful thing happened, right? This like horrible, like, like world shattering, thing, right? Was done to me by this person, right? This person committed harm on, like, upon me, upon my body, upon my psyche, right? And the only place that I can go is like miles away. You know what I mean? It's like there should be stuff that should be able to be dealt with in that space on that day, right? If that right, if right, let's say like if the survivor so chooses to deal with it on a particular day, right, or on a particular hour, whatever moment, whatever, to be like, yo, I'm going there. I'm talking to these people because I know they got my back. I know they support me. I know they will uplift me. I know that. Man. You know what I mean? Like, imagine if, like, right, and like conventions. Imagine if conventions were like that, and we saw, like, right, and people see something, and we're like, look, and we right, and if it's during, beforehand, after, like, everybody comes together and is like, yo, we got to figure this out. We have to work through this. We gotta, right? We gotta do all these things, and we have to center the person that, the people that were harmed. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. You know, and there's so many different ways to go about it depending on the situation, right? Because, like, not every situation is going to be the same. Not every situation will demand the same solutions or the same type of work. And that's the thing, right? But that's why it's so and that's one of the reasons why it's so important that we do that work, because we have to be better prepared to deal with those situations, because we know harm will occur. We know harm will happen. We know that. We just, you know, but again, harm reduction doesn't mean we don't work towards harm reduction. I don't know. That's all I'm gonna say now. I think I'm done right for now. But there's just a lot. There's just a lot. And I'm gonna have a more structured kind of conversation about it. But I think for now, that's what I wanted to say. That's what I wanted to say. And I think I'm just gonna start, like, I'm gonna start talking with some people. I'm gonna start talking with some people, reach out to certain people, and be like, yo, like, what are y'all doing here, and here to do this, and that? You know, like, and that's something that I've started doing. You know, I've started doing that. I talk with, like, I talk with my one of my YouTuber friends this weekend. And I was like, yo, what's going on? Like, what's happening? You know, so that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. And I think I'm gonna have people on. I'm gonna be like, yo, like, let's talk about this. Let's figure this out. Like, let's work. Let's get to work. That's what I want to do. And hopefully I can do more of that. I hope so. You know? I don't know. Okay. So I'm gonna stop here. And I think, yeah, I'll react to Haikyu in, like, maybe like 20 minutes or so, something like that. Cause I gotta drink some, like, tea or something for my throat. because it's been a while since I've streamed, and like when you don't stream like for a while, like you gotta like work like those like muscles again, and so. But hey, what's up? What's up, DJ? But I think this is stuff that we it's not enough to just kind of like, right? It's like obviously it's not enough to just kind of have the conversations, but I think I think those are good places to start, and I think that two, it's they're spaces, right? Conversations are spaces for working through resolution, working through restorative, transformative, healing, justice. Like we start there, and we don't just kind of say, oh, these things happened, oh man, that sucks, and then we just like stop. It's like, what can we do? What are actionable things that we can like really, really do? And I think people can do them. I have faith. I have faith in people. I do. I have faith in people to be able to do that work. I really, really do. You know why? Because there were definitely times where I wasn't where I was like horrible, and I know that, right, where like I wasn't aware of things, and there are definitely situations, right, high school, middle school, elementary school, where I know like harm was committed on my part, right, where there was just like making a particular individual uncomfortable, right, or throwing some food at some girl because of whatever. You know what I mean? Like I know, right? Calling someone a name. Like there's so many different moments, right? Like where that stuff's happening. Like ultimately, you gotta figure that stuff out. What do we do? Like to me, that's those conversations have to be sort of centered. Like, what do we do for survivors? What do we do for survivors? What do we do for survivors? Those conversations must center them. Right, and again, when I say center them, it doesn't mean that we don't worry about abusers or harm doers, right? Because we know that very often, like those individuals have been harmed, have been abused. So we have, right? So of course, like we have to sort of make space for them in certain ways. But it doesn't mean that we just throw out any sort of justice work, right? Restorative, transformative, and healing justice work for survivors. We just mean we throw that stuff out. But it's like there are ways to approach that. There are ways to do that. And we have and there's nuance to that, and we have to be really, really, really aware of it. But again, I think like when you have those conversations, it's like we got to make sure that we're not just kind of like saying, okay, yeah, man, I feel really bad about this thing. Yeah, man, I feel really bad too. I mean, like I really wanted to play this game, but now I can't play this game anymore. Yeah, man, I can't play this game anymore either. I don't know. But it's like, yeah, you should have space to like feel things and to like talk about those feelings and all that stuff, right? Yes, but that can't be the center of it, in certain conversations. You know what I mean? So I don't know. All right, I'm gonna stop here, because this is going on for like an hour and 18 minutes, 19 minutes. But that's like, again, I have feelings about it, and I said what I wanted to say for now. But I'm gonna really work on that stuff, and I'm gonna like really think about like who can I contact, what can I do, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna get out of here. But really, like, thank y'all for coming through. For this rambling stream. And a lot of this for me is like, it's just an opportunity to kind of like get thoughts out there, in this space, and hopefully, others also feel like they can come through and talk about these things and have these discussions. And it's a discussion, and it's stuff that I'm going to, continue to talk about on this channel. Definitely. So I'll react to Haikyu probably sometime later on today. It's 4:00 right now, but probably around like 5, something like that. But yeah. All right. Thank y'all for coming through, y'all. Again, we got to center survivors. All right. And we have to make sure that we're doing that work in our own spaces, but also that we're like prompting that work to be done in larger spaces that we're in proximity to or situated in. It's again, it's not easy work in per se, right? Like I think a lot of people got to like take that out of their minds, of like in terms of like things being easy or not, as opposed to like what needs to be done. What needs to be done? How do we move towards like all these spaces being safe spaces and like spaces where people can like, right, where people feel like they have support. All right, let me get out of here. Thank y'all for coming through. Shout out to Morning Haze for coming through. Love y'all. And shout out to the DJ for coming through in the chat too. All right. Aga Rocks, thank you for coming through as well. I'm the Black Manga Critic, and I'll get to Haikyu probably at like 5 or something like that. All right. And I am out, y'all.